7 different meetings with 7 different heads of state, then a meeting with his Prime Minister's office staff, and later a cabinet meeting. Prime Minister Modi has hit the ground running on his first day at work. Over the next 30 minutes, we give you an inside look into Team Modi and their agenda to revive the economy. Good evening and thanks very much for joining us on this special show where you get to meet your ministers. I'm Shireen Bhan. It is the dawn of a new era in India's history, and change is the buzzword in New Delhi. In a move that signals a paradigm shift in governance, the Modi government will adopt a hub-and-spoke model. Let me explain. Under this hub-and-spoke model, all ministers who hold economic portfolios will report to the Prime Minister's office and the Finance Minister. The new government hopes that this new model will result in faster decision-making. Nentha Rai reports on the hub-and-spoke model that's being followed in portfolio allocation.
The new NDA government, in signature Narendra Modi style, will function in a hub-and-spoke model. All the economic ministers talk about oil, power, transport, commerce, etc. will coordinate with the finance ministry under Arun Jaitley's leadership and then report to the Prime Minister's office. Sources add the Modi-Jaitley duo have selected ministers that will not be difficult and the rigid sorts to sit on files, but on the contrary be open to mentoring. As one senior BJP leader explains, this was the reason Prakash Javadekar was selected to head the Environment Ministry, which in the UPA regime had become notorious for becoming a stagnant government department.
All right, Nentha, thanks very much for taking us through what the hub-and-spoke model means. Let's now talk about one man who will be on top of this hub-and-spoke model. Arun Jaitley has most certainly emerged as the number 2 in Modi's cabinet. He's currently in charge of 3 portfolios: finance, corporate affairs and defense. Jaitley says he will give up defense and corporate affairs will be merged or clubbed with the finance ministry. Of course, we're awaiting final clarity on the modifications of that or the modalities of that. Of course, yet to hear about who the suitable replacement could be for Jaitley in the defense portfolio. Jaitley's been given this massive responsibility despite losing the elections from Amritsar, and here's why. He has served in the previous NDA government, handling various portfolios from the Commerce Ministry to divestment to law and shipping. Jaitley's also juggled various portfolios successfully. Sapna Das reports on the change of guard at the Finance Ministry.
Arun Jaitley, as the new finance minister, has hit the ground running. He took charge around 9:45 in the morning, met all the secretaries of the Ministry of Finance, met the RBI Governor, Dr. Raghuram Rajan, went on, took charge as a defense minister, came back, met MOS Finance, and during the day carried on with presentations from the Department of Economic Affairs and the Department of Expenditure. His priorities are very clear: tackling inflation and keeping the fiscal house in order. However, it will be the budget, the main document that will be presented by him, which will carry further clarity on his priorities.
I'm very grateful to the Prime Minister for having expressed his confidence in me in giving me the charge to head this ministry. For a transient phase, I'll be looking after the Ministry of Defence also, but that's only an additional charge till there is an expansion in the cabinet itself. I'm conscious of the fact that I am taking over at a very challenging time, particularly when there is a need to rebuild the confidence in the Indian economy. The challenges are very obvious. We have to restore back the pace of growth, contain inflation, and obviously concentrate on fiscal consolidation itself. The mandate which our government has received has an inbuilt hope in it. And I'm sure a political change itself sends a strong signal to the global community itself as also the domestic investors. And I think over the next few months, by expediting decision-making processes, I'm sure we'll be able to build on that.
Well, balancing growth and inflation and credible fiscal consolidation roadmap, that's high on the agenda of the new finance minister. Jaitley is likely to give up the defense portfolio in about 2 weeks, is what he said, but he will be the driving force behind the defense modernization program and bringing FDI into the sector. Here's the defense minister laying out the government's agenda for that ministry.
This is a very important ministry, and hopefully should get a ministerial head in the ministry over the next couple of weeks.
So Mr. Modi had also identified indigenizing defense production as one of his priorities. One of the issues was the 26% cap on the FDI. Is it something, you're also finance minister, is it something which...
Well, that's an issue which in both limbs will be dealt by by my two departments, and it's already come up in my preliminary discussions with the finance minister today, and therefore I don't want to say anything more till I go into the depth of the matter. If you remember that even 26% was decided upon when Mr. Vajpayee was in power. These are areas at least I am personally willing to examine.
Well, that's the temporary Defence Minister Arun Jaitley talking about the agenda for modernising and perhaps also reviewing the FDI cap for the sector. Now, if you thought Jaitley was the only man with 3 portfolios, think again. Ravi Shankar Prasad has returned to the Union Cabinet with a bag full of ministries. He took charge today as the Law, Telecom, IT and Communications Minister. Prasad brings a lot of experience with him, having served in the Cabinet led by Atal Bihari Vajpayee as Law Minister, I&B Minister and Coal Minister. Malvika Jain reports on the challenges ahead of Ravi Shankar Prasad.
After having been sworn as part of Narendra Modi's cabinet yesterday, Ravi Shankar Prasad today took charge of not 1 or 2 but 3 ministries. We are right now at Electronics Niketan, which was Ravi Shankar Prasad's last spot. He took charge of IT and Electronics department over here. Before that, he went to the Telecom department, wherein at Sanchar Bhavan, the Telecom secretary explained to him about the nuances and the focus area of the Department of Telecommunications. And in the morning, he had taken charge of the Department of Law and Justice. Remember that during the UPA 2 regime, these portfolios were held by Kapil Sibal. And now Ravi Shankar Prasad says that his emphasis is going to be on reviving investor sentiment as far as the telecom sector is concerned. He is going to come up with a national broadband highway, the nuances of which have not been disclosed so far. And as far as IT and electronics is concerned, his emphasis is going to be on improving and developing domestic manufacturing. For Law and Justice, Ravi Shankar Prasad made it very clear that he does not favor, initiating arbitration proceedings with foreign governments, and he's also not in favor of retrospective taxation amendments. But whether he is going to bring in new changes or overturn the decisions which had been taken by UPA 2 is something that Ravi Shankar Prasad was silent about today.
In telecom industry, 100% FDI is permitted, isn't it?
Yes.
And therefore, the 100% FDI must be quickened, must be helped to come in India under a transparent regime which is assured and stable. This shall be my endeavor. Establishing a broadband highway shall be a big area of our focus in the telecom ministry. If I can use a metaphor, if Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee government was known for national highway, Narendra Modi's government shall be known for broadband highway. Our manifesto is very clear: a stable fiscal regime, a stable policy regime. That's how you have to be seen. Today it will not be fair and proper on my part, nor I wish to make it our ministry any particular company specific. No. Our view would be to have a kind of a regime which is friendly for investment, promotes transparency and assures stable regimes on which they can come and invest. Personal endorsement or no endorsement, on a larger view, our view has been very clear that retrospectivity should be avoided in the maximum. As I said earlier, the fiscal regime, the policy regime, the taxation regime must be very evident because India needs investment.
Well, that was Ravi Shankar Prasad, the new Law, Telecom and IT Minister, trying to allay apprehensions to foreign investors that India accepts and welcomes foreign direct investment, that the BJP will try and move away from the retrospective tax law. How they will do that, we don't know. When we asked him that question, he said, thank you very much. Moving away from Ravi Shankar Prasad now to the man who led the BJP's campaign on social networks and has reaped rich dividends. Piyush Goyal has never held any central ministry, but he will now be in charge of power and the coal ministries. This is an attempt by the Modi government to try and bring together an integrated energy ministry. Goyal, a chartered accountant in his early avatar, has been the BJP's treasurer, and he was also a member of the Standing Committee on Finance. Anshu Sharma reports on Piyush Goyal's agenda for recovery.
We have seen Piyush Goyal rip apart UPA's infrastructure plan. Today he took charge of power, coal and renewable energy. He promises to bring turnaround in the power sector. He also says that he will visit Gujarat model to bring in change. He also said that coal ministry is a headline-seeking ministry, but he will bring transparency with process and policy.
I think he has made a beginning with keeping the power ministry, the coal ministry and the renewable energy ministry, which all have a lot of synergies, as I found out this morning when I took office in the power ministry. I think he has decided to bring the three under an umbrella. I do not say that there is any reorganization as yet. It's the three ministries have just been brought under an umbrella so that we can all work in tandem. What's important is that we set the processes right and we follow procedure and policy. If we are all able to get into a framework of working within the system which is laid down without discretionary exceptions being made to government working, I'm fairly confident we can ensure transparency in the working of this ministry. I'm fairly confident we can set a lot of things right so that as we go along, things are simplified, rationalized, and far more honest than what we have seen in the last few years. All through the campaign, I think one of my biggest propositions to the nation was how he was able to turn around the energy sector in Gujarat from all three perspectives: the consumer perspective, the producer perspective, and transparency. I do plan to visit Gujarat to take a more first-hand knowledge and experience of the Gujarat turnaround story. So maybe a team of us could visit Gujarat, meet their minister and their officials, and understand what they have done in these sectors. They've been extremely successful also in the renewable energy sector.
Well, that's Piyush Goyal, the new coal and power minister. He's got a challenging task ahead of him, a familiar face on CNBC-TV18 as he appears on many of our debates. But here's another person who's a familiar TV face, Nirmala Sitharaman, BJP spokesperson, will take charge as the new Minister for Commerce and Industry. Nirmala Sitharaman has never held any central ministry before. In fact, she worked with PricewaterhouseCoopers and even with BBC before taking the political plunge. She was part of the National Commission for Women. Rituparna Bhuyan reports on the road ahead of India's new Commerce and Industry Minister, who also gets the Minister of State for Finance and Corporate Affairs.
Nirmala Sitharaman is no stranger to foreign trade-related issues. In fact, her dissertation in Jawaharlal Nehru University was related to global trade norms. One of her critical responsibilities in Commerce and Industry Ministry will be to restore confidence of foreign investors in the Indian economy. But any misstep related to issues like retail FDI will not go well with foreign investors.
I'm sure this department will bring in a lot of hope and improve economic and commercial ties with our partners, improve on Indian exports, ensure that job opportunities emerge, because that's been a very important plank on which we have contested the recent election. The economic situation in this country demands that more jobs be provided for the young, talented, well-educated, and even the semi-skilled and unskilled people of India. So how much ever this department has to contribute to all this, at the same time lift the opportunity for Indian exports, we shall do our very best.
Well, she's one of the surprises of Modi's cabinet. Nirmala Sitharaman, what an elevation for her. She gets Minister of State with independent charge for commerce and industry and also gets Minister of State for finance and corporate affairs. Well, it's time now for us to take a quick break, but coming up after the break, meet your railways, aviation and petroleum ministers. We're back in just a minute.